morning and welcome to Rising. We have a great show for you today. It is Thursday. We've got, what do we have going on? More programming, more news, more debate, more
debates,
fun stuff.
more agreeing on stuff like the
More
Epstein
agreeing?
files.
Do we agree?
I
Are we
think
agreeing?
so.
Don't pretend we're agreeing when we're not.
Today on Rising, I'll talk about how media companies are caving to President Trump, and that could be terrible in regards to consequences.
And we'll also be discussing, of course, Tulsi Gabbard's latest document dump on Russiagate and her attacks on former President Obama.
And The View's Joy Behar seems to have gotten under Trump's skin this time. But Robby, let's start with what's on your radar.
All right, let's get to it. Why is the Democratic Party so furious about Stephen Colbert's cancellation? Now that is a question I've been asking myself all week as we've covered this, ever since we learned that the late-night host is losing his show after CBS decided that $40 million in losses every year is maybe too high a price to pay. Now, this really shouldn't come as much of a surprise to people. It's hard out there for large traditional television organizations. They now face all sorts of competition from streaming and social media, from independent people who are in some cases a lot funnier than Stephen Colbert and can do what late-night hosts do for a fraction of the cost. Now, I say there's more fun to be had on YouTube, TikTok, Substack, X, elsewhere. I'm certainly having fun. I'm having a ball. It's how more and more people are getting their entertainment and their news from the internet. Late night is going to have to play catch up. It just doesn't have the same relevancy or pack the same punch. So ultimately, this was quite clearly a business decision, but try telling them that. Now, Colbert is certainly acting like this is Donald Trump's fault. Isn't everything. In fact, he recently swore at Trump on air. Jon Stewart went even further, singing an entire profanity-laden song about how much he hates Trump. I won't play the clip because my very patient producers are getting sick of having to bleep every video I've requested this week between this and Hunter Biden. Now look, even Keith Olbermann, perhaps the most relentlessly partisan anti-Trump, anti-Republican mainstream progressive commentator on the planet, thinks this was probably just a business decision. Again, Keith Olbermann, the textbook case of Trump derangement syndrome, writing on X, well, if they fired him to appease Trump, why are they letting him remain on the air as a lame duck with nobody to stop him from saying whatever he wants for the next 10 months? They may have timed it to use it as a stop to Trump. This is like Phil Donahue getting canceled. Donahue being another former commentator, one I quite liked, who was eventually put out to pasture for business reasons. When Keith Olbermann is providing you a much-needed sanity check, you should be very, very afraid. Now, ultimately, I don't really blame other late-night hosts, Stewart, Kimmel, Fallon, etc., for showing industry solidarity with Colbert. That makes sense to me. But why are Democratic politicians also so upset about the cancellation? And trust me, they are furious. Representative Ted Lieu is actually circulating a petition telling CBS not to cancel Colbert. Doesn't he have more important things to do, possibly on behalf of his constituents? Isn't there somebody who needs something and spends a little more of his time elsewhere? Senator Bernie Sanders also weighed in as well. Bernie writes on X, CBS's billionaire owners pay Trump $16 million to settle a bogus lawsuit while trying to sell the network to Skydance. Stephen Colbert, an extraordinary talent and the most popular late-night host, slams the deal. Days later, he's fired. Do I think this is a coincidence? No. Okay, again, he has no evidence whatsoever this was anything other than a business decision. The show was a huge money loser. I know Bernie isn't a huge fan of capitalism, but generally, when you're losing tons of money, the business pivots, perhaps under democratic socialism. I guess we would have subsidized terrible political comedy forever. Yeah, that's why I don't like that plan very much. And of course, Senator Elizabeth Warren is equally outraged. Seriously, she will not stop tweeting about this. Does anyone think for a minute, by the way, that various Democratic politicians would be furious if a conservative news channel canceled a conservative show, or even if a show like the one you're watching right now, Rising, got axed? Now, we speak to perspectives all over the place. But I doubt it would matter to most Democratic officials, except maybe to a few friends of the program who've enjoyed being interviewed here, like Ro Khanna. No, the reason the end of Colbert is so infuriating is because the Democratic Party likes the content, and the content of Colbert was reliably anti-Trump. Just wasn't very funny.
the show's hilarious, but Stephen Colbert is hilarious. We disagree.
No one has ever laughed at the show. No one, not a person.
I laughed yesterday when we played a clip.
That wasn't you.
But really, I think.
See, I'm funny. Stephen Colbert is not.
You're asking why politicians are getting involved. Okay, I think because anybody looking at this plainly who just wants to be honest and say, yes, you're right. All the assertions you made, we don't know. We don't have any details. When we look at the clear picture from A to Z, you can see that CBS was willing to fight this, it seemed, as they watched through what happened the election season. Once Trump became president, we had a different conversation because we understand that Paramount Global has a special interest in an $8 billion merger that'll bring them with Skydance. And so Trump was actively blocking that based on cutting out a pause from a Kamala Harris interview that you did not want to play from a year ago. And so it's just like this vendetta and this personal retribution, that campaign that President Trump is on, is worth being looked at because, one, he's not only a politician, he's the president of the country, he's the top politician. And so if he's so wrapped up in this, what else is happening behind the scenes? And people want to know what all goes into this. I mean, there's so many conversations, and I'm going to talk about it more in my lens about what else they agreed to underneath this cloudy merger. But like, naturally, don't you think that politicians ought to be looking at what's going on and make sure that people are not being forced to bend a knee to President Trump or else? Because that seems to be his tactic. If you're his friend, you get rewarded. If you're not his friend, you get punished. No matter if you're a news network or a major company, he's just punishing everybody who doesn't oblige.
I have a compromise for you.
Okay.
So get this.
Okay.
So we're all, as Democrats, are very, very worried. Don't know that they're trying to make Trump happy. Okay. Because they need his approval. They need the administration's approval to do the deal. Okay, here's my compromise. No more government scrutinizing of mergers and acquisitions. No more antitrust. No more any of that. The federal government will just chalk it up to the First Amendment. Government shall make no law, not get involved. You can have corporate consolidations. Facebook can buy every company on the planet if it wants. Government can be, Bernie Sanders can whine about it and Elizabeth Warren can whine about it, but there'll be no government scrutiny of these kinds of deals. Comcast gobbling things up, Google, no more. Government
that generally
totally
comes
hands
from
off.
The Democratic
That's
Party,
what I'm in
correct?
favor of.
Yeah, so why is Trump doing this? That generally comes from the Democratic Party, the people who
criticize
big
Democrats
deals like
want to get in the
Comcast
way of
deal,
businesses operating.
No, that's not a blanket statement. They want to make sure that there's not a monopoly, right, to protect the American consumer, protect price fluctuation, protect competitiveness in the market, all stuff that capitalism
That's what
breeds
they say
and
they're
lives
doing, but
off
I don't
of.
trust them at all.
I know,
to
but
do
President
that.
Trump is simply doing this not because it aligns with anything that's in the Republican Party about being part of these deals. It's because of personal retribution. So that should bother
You think
the
Democrats don't try to block mergers because of political retribution or political calculation? I do not trust. I don't trust either side to just say what's in the best interest of consumers.
Do you want to set a standard? Like, do you want to? Colbert's show was canceled 3 days after he called out the company simply for doing something that they actually did do. It looked a little bit bribish.
It loses $40 million.
Okay, and I understand that. I'm a money person too, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. The answer to every question is money for the most part.
I just want to know what the standard is. We're talking about this in your lens too?
Yes.
Okay, maybe I'll save the remainder of my comments for my reaction to your take. But I just want some consistency. Either we're going to have mergers of corporations be political and be subjected to political considerations, in which case you have to live with the fact that the person in charge has politics that you don't like. That's the way it's got to be. Or you can do it my way, my libertarian way, and say, no, we'll have a small government that has nothing to do with this. They can't do anything about it, and companies can buy whatever they want, and we'll have no political considerations. It's one or the other. You can't have this magic fantasy land where, okay, we have the government very involved, but only with the noblest of intentions. That is a fantasy land. Doesn't exist.
Okay, we're going to talk about it more. We just told you guys. Up next, Obama's camp is firing back at Trump after Tulsi Gabbard releases a new set of Russiagate documents. We'll be right back.
Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard released a new set of Russiagate documents.
The documents are a 2020 House Intel Committee report, which was previously classified. Notably, Republicans controlled the House during this period.
And one of the things the report found was, quote, the judgment that Putin developed a clear preference for candidate Trump and aspired to help his chances of victory did not adhere to the tenets of the ICD, analytic standards. Moreover, the report says that the CIA relied on, quote, one, scant, unclear, unverifiable fragment of a sentence from one of the substandard reports when it came to the conclusion that Putin took actions to help Trump in the 2016 election.
Senator Mark Warner pushed back on Gabbard and criticized her for even releasing the classified House report. The lawmaker defended the Senate Intel Committee's 2020 report on the same subject, saying in a statement, quote, "Let's be clear, the bipartisan unanimous finding of the Senate Intelligence Committee after years of painstaking investigation, more than 200 witnesses and interviews and millions of documents was that Russia launched a large-scale influence campaign in the 2016 election in order to help then-candidate Donald Trump."
Now, Gabbard also released documents on Friday that she says implicates Obama-era officials. Gabbard said these officials misled the public about intel related to Russia and the 2016 election. Here she is at Wednesday's press briefing.
The evidence, correct. The evidence that we have found and that we have released directly point to President Obama leading the manufacturing of this intelligence assessment. There are multiple pieces of evidence and intelligence that confirm that fact.
Obama's camp has fired back at Trump, saying in a statement on Tuesday, quote, "Out of respect for the office of the presidency, our office does not normally dignify the constant nonsense and misinformation flowing out of this White House with a response. But these claims are outrageous enough to merit one. These bizarre allegations are ridiculous and an attempt at distraction." Epstein, that's the answer to everything. Stop trying to distract. Tulsi Gabbard came and barged in the middle.
You're trying to distract.
No, Tulsi Gabbard came in the middle of a press conference with a surprise appearance yesterday, breaking news, revealing information that already has existed for 5 years, since 2020, just rehashing a situation that's already, like the Senate Intel Committee spent so much time, like we just discussed, had documents of 200 pages report detailing some of the stuff that we already know. So why are you bringing it back up right now? It just seems like a huge opportunity to try to point to some other presidency for all the issues that we have ongoing, instead of just answering what's actually on the table for President Trump and his team. No, it's a distract and deflect politics at its best.
Because the whole thing, Russiagate, was a hoax that was perpetrated by the mainstream media, relying on information from intelligence officials that we now know coordinated with President Obama himself to exaggerate the extent to what Russia was doing, and by extension its connections to the Trump campaign. Let's be very clear: Russia did not hack voting machines. They did not coordinate with the Trump campaign. They were not. We did not actually find evidence they were trying to help Trump. Yes, they did purchase Facebook ads and do some Facebook bots and groups in order to promote negative viewpoints of Hillary Clinton,
which you shouldn't want inside of your politics.
But I also have negative views of Hillary Clinton, as did more than half the country, which is why she lost the election.
But the point is that the new documents don't show any criminality. They're not going to do anything for President Obama. They're not going to put him behind bars. It doesn't show anything egregious. It shows that they uncovered maybe less than what they maybe have accused President Trump of, so maybe it wasn't to the magnitude.
They show that he weaponized the Justice
But in
Department
some
to hurt
ways,
Trump.
we were looking at Russia and saying,
You're right,
yes,
he's not
we
going
don't
to jail
want,
for it.
right, we don't want that type of interference into our politics, our government, into our social media conversations. At the same time, we were trying to see what is appropriate on social media, right? About how much, like you said yesterday, what do you call it? On Facebook, they try to step out of the political arena. Right? It became over politicized. It wasn't even fun anymore.
Well, and
for
I
Zuckerberg.
think that was a huge mistake.
And so I think
I disagree. I think they, because of this absurd and false narrative that Facebook was responsible for Trump getting elected because they got taken over by Russia. That was part of this whole contention within the mainstream media, that in addition, that Vladimir Putin and Mark Zuckerberg were responsible for the end of American democracy because Facebook was hacked by Russia. That was their contention. And in response to that, Zuckerberg was like, okay, don't hurt me anymore. No more news on the platform. Stop. And ironically, that's killed the mainstream media because they were reliant on Facebook. Everyone was reliant on Facebook for traffic. It was a really shooting yourself in the foot thing. But I think he made that business decision in part due to this false narrative. So it matters for that reason, too.
But Tulsi Gabbard does not have a smoking gun. Everybody looking at this, I mean, I've talked to people across the aisle, like okay, off the record, is this going anywhere? Nobody truly thinks this is going anywhere. Just like I can sit here and say, oh, the Democrats were not that interested in Epstein and pursuing it further as releasing the documents until it became a thing that Trump didn't want to do, and it became a theater and a spectacle. And so now it's entertaining, but also it's sad that there are victims that are still watching this all play out. And yes, we want them released now because of this. But you have to be able to look in the mirror and say, yes, this is actually just a look over here distraction, and this does not have any merit to it. This is not going anywhere. All these suggested charges, and if we do everything that is suggested, just like we do every time we impeach President Trump, is going to go nowhere. We're wasting American tax dollars and time.
Okay.
And so what is the point of this for Tulsi Gabbard? She knows that nothing's going to happen. Obama did nothing criminally. He looked into something, and the results were not up to her standard. But then what do you want to do? Sue him. That's more in line with President Trump and what he does, rather than try to throw President Obama in jail. That's not happening.
There is something you said in there that is true, that I agree with, that I should, reality check for conservatives in MAGA. Obama is not being prosecuted. He's not being handcuffed, and he's not going to go to jail. And the reason for that is the Supreme Court decision in Trump's favor, saying things he had done fall within his executive purview. President Obama was the president at that time, and I totally disagree with what he did. And I think if you were under a standard where presidents could be held more aggressively criminally liable, then he could be prosecuted.
For treason?
Hold on, let me finish. But because the Supreme Court has said, for Trump, the executive gets pretty wide discretion to do things as long as he thinks it's in the national interest. You could make a case. I don't think this was in the national interest. I think it was designed to hurt Trump. But you could certainly make an argument that Obama thought he was acting in the national interest, and thus he's covered under the same Supreme Court justification that protects Trump. So MAGA can be mad about that, but it's just applying the same Supreme Court standard to him that got applied to Trump. So it ain't going anywhere. Sorry.
Yeah, just like Epstein's not going anywhere. But there was a bipartisan committee that came up with this conclusion that, like you said, we do not want Russia anywhere around our politics, spending massive amounts of money to support President Trump and to make Hillary look bad.
Have Democrats and liberal pundits gotten new instructions, being beamed from headquarters that Epstein? Bring up Epstein.
No, yeah, because
Epstein.
Because at the same time, this is all about transparency, right? So bringing forth what happened with Russiagate, quote unquote, is about transparency. So if we're still being transparent, at the same time, the pot is calling the kettle black. Be transparent about Epstein. Be transparent with what you promised to your core audience. That's what I'm saying. You can't bring forth two things at once when you're doing something exact opposite. On one side and then asking for transparency on the other side. We just want a little bit of consistency. It's not making sense to everyone across the aisle, and we're happy to jump on board with people who have the complaint about Epstein.
There's a very loud air conditioning fan in the studio that just got quieter, and it's very odd, and it's throwing me off.
Makes me want to whisper.
Let's wrap this segment. Yeah, we usually feel like we're screaming over each other to talk over that fan. Trump wants to make the U.S. global leaders in artificial intelligence, and he's signed a plan to make that happen. We'll talk about it after the break. Don't go anywhere.
So from this day forward, it'll be a policy of the United States to do whatever it takes to lead the world in artificial intelligence, such an important thing happening this.
Trump is ready to lead the global AI race with the help of Silicon Valley. This week, President Trump signed an executive order enabling his AI action plan. This is an order aiming to make the U.S. global leader in AI technology. The plan includes accelerating innovation by removing federal regulations, increasing AI infrastructure here at home, and making American-made hardware and software the standard for any AI built around the world.
But the executive order will also look to get rid of, quote, woke artificial intelligence. The government, which is the tech industry's biggest buyer, will not give government contracts unless companies can, quote, ensure that their systems are objective and free from top-down ideological bias.
Well, what's so wrong with that? It seems like our AIs shouldn't have ideological bias. That's fine with me. And wokeness can sometimes be a very vague catch-all for a lot of different...
Yeah, I hate that term's even used in this context.
I think I've said this before. I've certainly said it on the show before. I don't know if I've said it to you or someone else. But the reason that woke won as the term, it beat out political correctness and intersectionality and all those other fancier terms is because it's one syllable and it's easier to say and easier to write into a headline. So we call everything woke because it saves time and it's convenient. But I think what we're really talking about when we were saying we don't want woke is we don't want identity-based discrimination, affirmative action type things. We don't want, this matters for schools and it matters for contracting. We don't want an AI that thinks we should only hire, or we should hire people for we just want the best AI, the best people working on it. I talked yesterday about the importance of AI and leading the future in this, and how Biden had a not good executive order on this. So this is exactly in line with where I think it should be. It's really a foreign policy to stay globally competitive and to not lose out to China.
I watched, unfortunately, that long AI press conference yesterday where he was rambling about wokeness and Biden and how many terrible decisions he made. And I thought, get to the point. And he actually did. Yes, I think that AI should operate in a very autonomous, free space that just gives information. That's amazing. But I think that the criticisms made sense of what Biden was trying to do, because with something that's unprecedented that we don't have experience with, having a no guardrails approach does not protect Americans at all. We're talking about software and technology that could eventually infiltrate everything from our livelihoods to our infrastructure around America to our economy, almost every single thing across the board, our children. And so you want to have some guardrails in place. You want to have people overlooking these. Yes, they don't have to be the 80-year-old senator who has no question within the realm of making sense to ask, but there needs to be some oversight and some looking into this that makes it so that people and billionaires who already do come with an opinion and perspective are not programming these things to do one thing or the other, because I'm not going to be comfortable operating off just the trust that they're agreeing not to be woke, but what is the alternative to woke? Because that term is so misused that what does that mean? I don't want it to be programmed in any other way either. And all the billionaires that I know want to align themselves with Trump or whoever is the next president doesn't make me comfortable to know that they are in charge and there's human beings in charge of AI at the end of the day.
What I am interested with AI right now is I've started to notice how AI is going to very swiftly further destroy the mainstream media in terms of written articles, because Google search results is what drives a lot of traffic to news websites, for instance. But now if you Google a search term, you get a little AI written explanation of what you searched for.
Yep.
That drops how often people are going to click on the thing. It makes their rate of actually having to click on an article to read about this so much lower. So the long story short, pivot to video, people, because that's right now AI can't easily replace that, or AI videos look obviously
look
fake.
Terrible.
But the written word is going to be replaced by AI tomorrow. So have fun with that.
Now, does Paramount Global's $16 million settlement with President Trump smell funny to any of you? I'll talk about it next in my lens. Stick around.
All right, Lindsay, I'm looking forward to this. What's in your lens?
We are going to keep talking about this Paramount situation. So if it walks like a bribe, talks like a bribe, and shows up like a signed $16 million settlement while a media merger is on the line, it might just be a bribe. At minimum, it smells really funny. Skydance, the company trying to buy Paramount Global, is promising the FCC a, quote, comprehensive review of CBS News, a brand new auditor to keep the bias in check, and oh yeah, plans to completely eliminate all DEI programs at the company. And they're framing all this as the best way to serve, quote, public interest. Huh? This sudden interest in objectivity and, quote, non-discrimination compliance doesn't feel neutral. It feels strategic, almost like an audition tape for the Trump administration's approval. Because, spoiler alert, Skydance needs that green light from the same White House that's currently on the receiving end of millions of dollars in settlements and, quote, advertising deals from the very company seeking a merger. Coincidence? You decide. But the timeline tells a different story. Paramount settled what many legal experts called a, quote, baseless lawsuit from Trump for $16 million, most of which is headed straight to his presidential library fund. Same place that Qatari jet's going. Then came whispers of another $15 to $20 million in PSAs and media content aligned with Trump's messaging. And days after Stephen Colbert said this on national TV, CBS canceled his show.
Now, I believe this kind of complicated financial settlement with a sitting government official has a technical name in legal circles. It's big fat bribe.
Yet they canceled the show just 3 days after he said that. Come on now. You don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to feel that something ain't right here. You just have to pay attention. Skydance claims there's no side deal with Trump, but Trump himself is out here bragging on Truth Social and everywhere else about how he, quote, hopes he got Colbert fired. When a sitting president openly celebrates the silencing of a top critic of his and companies shift policies to please him, it stops being media strategy and starts looking like soft authoritarianism. We've seen this play before, and it does not end well. So I connected those dots that you were a little bit confused about, Robby. You know, there's like so much that's going on here that doesn't make sense. Like, we're going to audit the entire CBS News. Now CBS News needs an entire audit for diversity, equity, and inclusion to make sure that they have objective reporting. Like, what? This is all to please President Trump. This has nothing to do with merit. The lawsuit should have never been settled, in my opinion. And because there's an ulterior motive that ends with capitalism, right? They want to do this $8 billion merger. People are just cowering to President Trump and whatever he wants to do. And to me, I think politicians should look into this. I think people should be aware. I think people at home should question this, because you don't want this to go in this direction. You don't want media to go in this direction. In the same week that we're canceling access to public objective programming, you don't want this to also be happening in these news of auditing the entire CBS newsroom.
Public objective programming. I hope that wasn't a reference to NPR.
That is. That's
which is not objective
that's
programming.
PBS
It's
and
liberal
NPR.
propaganda.
No.
I can't.
We're not.
I can't
This is
take
not
it
about.
seriously.
This
It's
is not
liberal
about.
propaganda.
No, I can't take this seriously. That you're not actually seeing the writing on the wall here.
Getting rid of DEI is popular and pro-consumer.
Yeah,
What
but
if they
companies
just
don't
said,
have DEI based on popularity. They have DEI based on necessity. They have DEI based on lack of access for people of color and from different experiences
have
to
DEI
opportunities. No, that is
to
just
appease-
false. Why it came about is because people were not allowed in spaces, because naturally, right, you go with people that you know, and naturally people sit within their communities. So it's easier to hire somebody who looks like you, who you spend more time with, who you see in those roles because you see yourself. And so DEI was created so we have a wide variety of voices in the room, not to, especially in a newsroom, not to bring down just one perspective and one voice. All walks of life help tell a full story, correct? So that's what a newsroom needs.
Okay, so Colbert is reflecting the diversity of the perspectives of the
No,
country?
Colbert is
that
not.
what you're
Colbert
saying?
is one perspective and one critic that
Oh, we
did
just
criticize.
thought that was bad.
No. What?
Maybe the show needs some DEI in terms of some actual different perspectives, and then it would have performed better. Like South Park, which we're
Yeah,
also
if they
talking
would've
about, which
canceled the show
does
any
actually
other
do a
time-
wide range of views and skewering of all sorts, and it's insanely popular and profitable. Colbert is not, because he makes obvious, lame, anti-Trump jokes that are interesting to an increasingly small slice of the population, and it's very tired and very worn out and not very funny when he does it. When John Oliver does it, it's kind of funny. When Colbert does it, it's a little bit lazy. And so here we are. There's no conspiracy. Getting rid of DEI is good. Getting rid of Colbert is fine because there's not enough people watching it.
As a business owner, we're in early third quarter, okay? Reports don't come out on how much you lost. This is an odd time, 3 days after he calls it a bribe, to cancel the show. The beginning of the year, early fourth quarter, this is when you make those decisions for the next year. They made this abruptly in response to, in retaliation to, requests,
Then
I believe.
they would have just ended it today.
Well, he probably would just get paid out and they have no programming, right? They got to fill a slot. So they couldn't be losing that much money, because if they would have put a PBS show there, it probably wouldn't have done well in the middle of the evening, right? So that's the point, is that it makes enough money to keep it on for the next year and a half. So it wasn't that bad.
I don't know how we can get away from the point I made when I discussed this in my radar, which is just that if you have a problem with Trump having power over this merger because he's the president of the government, then you must, I don't know what conclusion you can reach other than we should have a libertarian approach to this where the government does not provide oversight into mergers of this kind, which is a policy I would agree with, but I know that you would not, and that no Democrats would agree with. So then I don't understand what they're saying. They're just saying, we're mad the federal government is exercising control over this instead of us.
It's one thing if, like, the FCC...
Bad when you do it, good when I do it.
Well, it's one thing if the FCC or the federal government is looking at programming and saying, okay, this is going to be a monopoly if X company buys another company. It's another thing you were saying, oh, children...
Do you really believe that would not be
children will be
political?
watching at this time. We need to take out the curse words and make sure that this is appropriate for television.
That's the dumbest thing of all.
These are all different things that I find appropriate. But when we have somebody trying to criticize a network for editing an interview and a pause, a breath out of an 9/11 interview, and that's what we're trying to sue for $16 million over. This is a political vendetta against the company. This has nothing to do with merit on suing a news organization for not delivering the news. And
everything the FCC
I don't think
does
that
is
I think the government ought to be asking
ridiculous.
questions, but I think that question
No,
was
they
silly
shouldn't.
and very politically motivated from President Trump
But
and is seeking retribution right now. And so CBS and Paramount as a company is complying because that's the right thing to do if they want to make money. And their interest is more in money than telling real journalism and news, obviously, because they're owned by a broader company. And I get it, that's capitalism.
You just brought
but
up-
I think that is what Trump's point was, is that your company, if you want to continue to grow in America, has to abide by my rules, even if the rules make no sense.
Didn't you just bring up examples that are like very indicative of why the government having any control over this is stupid?
Why do you don't like the FCC
swearing?
rule?
No, they should.
No, I don't want my toddler to listen to swearing. I didn't want my toddler to see Janet Jackson, costume malfunction.
Okay,
I
hope you don't give your toddler access to the internet, whatever. I hope you lock them in
It's
some
called YouTube
windowless
Kids.
room.
YouTube Kids.
The idea that they're not, our language has become so much coarse. You can't walk down the street without hearing
This
F-bombs.
conversation
This
can go
is
so many directions because I love this. This is rich. Because,
Yeah.
Republicans argue all the time that kids not have access to certain information, especially regarding sex and sexual
this is some
orientation.
Tipper Gore.
But you're going to walk around the world and see these things anyway. That's the same conversation. So there's a very nuance in all these conversations, obviously.
The
and
idea
that's one
that
of the ones
the
where you
government
protect
has
your
a
kid as much as
special
possible.
role in making sure content between the hours of whatever don't contain any curse words is, I would like to use a curse word to describe it, but we would be fined by the FCC for doing so, since our program is now on not just the internet on YouTube, but is also on TV here in the District of Columbia.
I love a good rule.
We have to self-censor. Oh.
You don't have to. Why are you need a curse to make your point? I
literally
love
cannot
a good
communicate
rule.
to you how much I hate this.
I love a rule.
President Trump, next up, is speaking out after reports he was told his name is in the Epstein files. We will get to that topic next. Stay with us. Talk about a bombshell report. The Justice Department allegedly told President Trump months ago in May that his name is among the many names in the Epstein files. Now, that is according to exclusive reporting by the Wall Street Journal. Get this, his name appeared multiple times, according to senior administration officials. Trump's speaking out about the claim. Let's watch.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the file?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, and in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden, it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release, yeah.
Now a judge is denying the DOJ's request to release the jury transcript. It all comes amid nuclear fallout in the MAGA world and beyond after the Justice Department said earlier this month the Epstein client list does not exist. Following the news, Democratic Congressman Don Beyer taking to X saying, quote, "It was the simplest explanation all along." Liberal political commentator Brian Krasenstein taking it a step further, calling for Trump to, quote, "resign immediately" if his name appears in the Epstein files multiple times, like the Wall Street Journal reports.
But conservative political commentator Scott Jennings is not sold. In a post on X, Jennings said, "Unverified hearsay is what Trump is up against now." Well, the Wall Street Journal is reporting those words. Outrageous attempt to create a narrative where no credible evidence exists on Epstein. Same thing happened on Russia. Dems creating alternate and false reality. The idea that he should resign, should resign immediately.
Yeah, that was intense. But
what?
I want to read something to you. So
about what?
An
Okay,
NBC News report. So basically, the White House aides have told and made it clear that no one in the administration is allowed to talk about Epstein without high-level vetting, according to a senior administration official who said, quote, "The communications office has to be directly involved with every aspect of this, every." So, I mean, like, what is the problem? Like, there is so much going on. Like, in this week alone, we saw MLK files be released, and that touted as, oh my God, everybody look over here.
Yeah, no one cares about that.
I know. And then we've seen Tulsi Gabbard break into a press conference, surprise everyone, and say, oh my gosh, I have my smoking gun, and it's still something from 2020. So we are just seeing distraction after distraction, and it makes me wonder, what are you hiding? I told you naturally I wasn't that interested in following a play-by-play of this story, but the fact that there is so much commotion around around this, and now a tight sealed ship going on at the White House where don't say a word, and Trump pretending like he doesn't know and wasn't briefed from Pam Bondi that he was involved in these files, and his name appeared multiple times. And that's just a flat out lie, according to reports, right? He knows and was briefed, and that's just not the Wall Street Journal anymore. Multiple people are reporting that he had some understanding that his name was connected to these files.
Yeah.
So what's the big...
But let's be very clear here. This is not a bombshell. I described it as a bombshell in what I read, but it's not actually a bombshell. We know that Epstein and Trump were friends, that they spent time together, that Epstein visited Mar-a-Lago. That is not a secret. So by files, it could just be the known associations of Trump and Epstein, which are acknowledged and known, that ended before his criminal sexual proclivities became public knowledge and he was prosecuted for them. Their association had ended by then. If it's just information from that time period, which no one has suggested otherwise, then I don't. It's not. It was already known that Trump's name would appear in documents related to Epstein investigations, as will other people's names. In fact, that was why Trump, from the get-go, when asked about the Epstein files, said, well, yeah, we want to release what we can release and we want to be transparent, but this isn't as important to me as other things because we'll have to be careful. There will be some people who then will be tarnished by association that have nothing to do with the sex crimes in these documents. That is what he said from the get-go. Now, that's not what Kathy Tell said or Dan Bongino said or J.D. Vance said or anyone else in MAGA. They thought they were getting all of it. And the way he's gone about this has made it seem like there's something more sinister in the files that's being kept back. So I think what they've done is I don't think that's the case, but I think they've made it look like that, which was really stupid. This is like a textbook how not to handle a PR issue, is to bury and hide and conceal, because now you're making it look like there's something to be embarrassed about.
And when Marjorie Taylor Greene criticizes the president, then you know there's a huge problem. She's being very vocal. Like, you have to give more information. Otherwise,
I was listening to Matt Walsh criticizing him the other day, Daily Wire. Trump is being criticized from people who are otherwise pretty solidly pro-Trump, who defend him against a lot of criticisms, often unfair criticisms, sometimes criticisms that I think are valid, but that MAGA doesn't think are valid. So that he's having a lot of frustrated MAGA people goes to show that this approach has not been good. Now, that's very different from saying that there's, again, some sinister thing, given his association with Epstein.
All we can do right now is look at the situation and say this behavior is odd. This seems like very much like when you used to have a crisis. If I wasn't attached to something, then it wouldn't be a crisis for me, right? You're calling this a PR crisis and having a moment where the team is in disarray. It wouldn't be disarray or strife for me if I knew it had nothing to do with something. It would be as simple as the way he comes forward with other press conferences and says, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care. I haven't been briefed on it. He's very relaxed with that. He's very open and accessible with that. He changed his tone on the messaging around these Epstein files several times, from like, why are you even worried about it? Like trying to condescend not only the people that ask new questions, but the people who've been asking questions for years now. And then also now it's like, okay, we'll try to do a little bit, try to release a little bit. Like, he's not really doing anything effective that people want and that his team promised. And so to also have this new tight ship in the White House that's telling everyone reportedly that you cannot say a thing about this particular issue when people feel comfortable to speak freely from his White House on multiple issues, it seems like a red flag and something that naturally people who weren't interested in this before should be looking at, like, okay, well, is this a problem? It seems a little scarier than I thought. I was interested and entertained. Now I'm kind of taken aback. Yeah,
I am. It's not going to go away. This approach is not going to work because, I say that, and then I guess I don't know. Maybe over the fullness of time, Trump can just grind down the base and redirect them. He's done this with, for instance, January 6th was something that caused a lot of condemnation of Trump, even from within the conservative world initially. He was criticized for it was acknowledged by many conservative leaders, or even conservative media people, that the things he had said played into what took place, and he was condemned for that at the time. As time has gone on, he has overcome that line of criticism internally from conservatives. Obviously, he still gets that criticism from Democrats and mainstream people, but MAGA, conservative media and political figures, to be in good standing, can't be mad about January 6th. They've had to change how they view of that.
That's not a
so
good.
maybe that will happen with Epstein too. I'm not saying
Even
it's a
saying
good
that
thing.
out loud sounds terrible. Everyone must get in line. Otherwise, this is the pattern of the stories that we talked about today. CBS, Paramount must get in line.
No,
you don't want that
they
type of
must make
leader.
money.
As you say this out loud, it sounds dictatorish. And I'm not the dramatic one to call Trump that. But as you say these things out loud, right? Get in line or else don't. Or move around. Get in line or you're kicked out of the party. Get in line or you're getting sued.
Get in line or you'll lose my love and support, my being Trump, and the support of the fans. He's not threatening people with they're going to be put in jail for disagreeing with him on this stuff. It's just that they're going to lose favorability because the Republican base ultimately is loyal to Trump over everyone else.
And when are this base of MAGA going to get offended that even with, like you said, the MLK files, your lack of interest is extraordinary to see, because not only are the files, the Epstein files, so important to the MAGA base and everyone surrounding it, to hear the response to MLK and even to what Tulsi Gabbard is doing right now is very lackluster. So I feel like it should feel a bit disrespected that he's holding up a piece of red meat, like, look over here. And people are interested, but the most interesting thing, which you've told me, the poignant thing for the MAGA base are the Epstein files. So
the Tulsi
why
thing is
is
getting
that not the
wall-to-wall
number
coverage
one
in conservative media?
But would you say the number one issue is still the Epstein files?
Yeah.
Okay, so then he needs to address his base in that way, and that's just the main issue. And this tactic smells fishy, looks a little insane, and people want to know. People who even were uninterested want to know what's going on. People like me.
Yeah, but just saying that his name is in the Epstein files is not. People are going to casually conflate that with saying that he's
He lied
on
about
the
it.
client list.
Well, he lied
which
about
is not
it.
what
They
they're
asked
saying.
him, and he lied about it when he was just in that.
What did he say?
He said no. He said, did Pam Bondi brief you on this? He said no. Yes, she did in May. That's a fact. The View is now on Trump's radar. We'll tell you more about that next. We'll be right back after this.
Well, after recent shakeups in late-night TV, the White House is attacking The View. Spokesperson Taylor Rogers suggested it could be the next to go after Joy Behar's latest anti-Trump rant. Take a look.
The thing about him is that he's so jealous of Obama because Obama is everything that he is not.
Yeah.
Trim, smart, handsome,
Happily married,
and can sing Al Green's song, Let's Stay Together, better than Al Green.
Yeah.
And Trump cannot stand it. It's driving him crazy.
The White House clapped back in an exclusive email statement to Entertainment Weekly. Jones wrote, quote, Joy Behar is an irrelevant loser suffering from a severe case of Trump derangement syndrome. She should self-reflect on her own jealousy of President Trump's historic popularity before her show is the next to be pulled off air. This latest spat comes after CBS canceled the late-night show with Stephen Colbert. Rising reached out to The View for comment, but as of airing, we haven't heard back.
What a piece of work this Joy Behar is. She just worships Obama, just like glorifying him.
He did sing Al Green pretty well. She made interesting points.
And it's an unfair dig at the Trump-Melania marriage, which seems like a perfectly nice marriage. People always project older, hysterical Trump derangement syndrome white ladies just imagine themselves as Melania, and they hate Trump so much that, like, I would feel imprisoned in this marriage.
You are doing the same thing. You're matching her energy right now.
Every insight we get into their relationship is that Melania is perfectly happy, and that they talk about policies. It's not a sham marriage. That she actually encouraged years ago. Initially, she encouraged him, run for president or stop talking about it. You have to do one or the other. And that he said the other day that he has conversations with Putin that he thinks goes well, and then he talks to Melania and she'll be like, but he just wiped out another village. There's no, and to contrast with the Obamas, we were concerned because they had spent a lot of time apart, seemingly. Now it's all fine and that's good.
I was never concerned about.
Some people were concerned.
Barack
I don't know.
and Michelle.
It was a stupid. It was not humorous either. It's not original to say that. That Obama's in better shape. What is this commentary? Who wants this?
They have a very tumultuous relationship with a majority of the hosts at The View with President Trump. So as someone who spent time there, I understand that. Like, Trump very much behaves in a way that, like, I will say condescending things about your former, current, prior host, whatever. And so they should have the authority because you like responses. You said, so Trump shouldn't be able to respond? You always say that. So, yes, should The View women not be able to respond? The only difference is that they're not president of the United States. So he shouldn't be looking at programming and figuring out which one he can talk to and which executives he can talk to help axe a program, like people are suggesting that he may have done with Colbert's late night show. He needs to just understand there's a variety of programming out there. Nobody from the other side is threatening to try to cancel all the shows on Fox.
That's not true. That's
who's
absolutely
who's threatening
untrue.
cancellation right now?
Pathologically untrue.
Who is threatening cancellation right now?
The very Democrats I've been brought up have sent letters repeated. They call out. They'll
Obama
say
never
you're
said,
platforming misinformation.
Apples
They
to
won't go to the
apples.
networks. They'll go ahead of the network
Apples
and say
to apples.
this
When has a Democratic
platform for
president
putting this show
ever
on is
said
showing
Fox needs to
misinformation
go?
and should be.
A Democratic president never said cancel Fox, we'll sue the network, we want the show off air, right?
No,
that doesn't
what they
happen.
said is we will remove your license to operate Verizon/Comcast/ whatever it is if you keep running this network. That's what
the
they'll do.
president
It's
of the country
thing.
never said that. And so that's what I'm saying. A Democratic president never said that. And so Congress people are allowed to do whatever they feel appropriate, right? A lot of times we don't agree with what Congress does. We both agree that, they are focused on issues that are not the most important to you or I, and in the past historically have been. But a president is a different person. And so the fact that Trump is so interested in when people say bad things about him, you are in the highest office in the land. You have to understand and accept criticism. That's just that's the name of this game. And you can't be so ego-driven and so offended by everything that people say.
Joe Biden told Facebook to take down conservative accounts that had different attitudes about COVID policies because Facebook was killing people and would be regulated accordingly if it did not
So Joe
crack
Biden
down
was
on
interested
conservative
in providing
voices.
information
that
he felt was
example you
accurate
wanted.
through the information he was given by major health agencies.
And by the way, it was not
and he wanted
accurate.
it distributed properly, and he was doing the best with the moment he had. President Trump is just randomly attacking women and people at The View and other outlets. He's suing ABC, he's suing CBS, trying to cancel programming. To what end? Because he wants all to be praiseworthy of President Trump? That's foolish. You're a president. No one's going to always praise you, and he has to understand and accept that. So does the whole entire party. It's okay.
Well, if you're Obama and the programming was only The View, it would just be all praise. And I think that's how
we
Democrats
have
would
never
like
lived
it,
in
but-
that situation. We've always been the
It was
older
a
that
nice
we get.
reminder of how fawning the coverage was back in the Obama days from the mainstream media.
Well, that does it for us on
He
Rising
sings so
Live.
well.
Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way today. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen on the go, we are available anywhere you listen to podcasts.